Hello, and welcome to this presentation on how to study effectively for online courses. My name is Rebecca, and I'm one of the graduate assistants at Learning Services here at Mason. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. Like I said, I'm part of Learning Services, and we are normally located in Sub 1 in Suite 3129 in the Counseling and Psychological Services Center. Our phone number, which is still reachable for appointments, is 703-993-2380. And our website, which you can visit, is learningservices.gmu.edu. And we also have various social media platforms where we post announcements about our workshops and other sort of study tips and fun facts. So definitely check us out there. So before we get started, I just want to let you know that at Learning Services, we offer many workshops like this one, which you can register for on Mason 360. We also offer one-on-one individualized academic coaching. So if there's any tool you hear about in one of our workshops and you want to work personally with someone to kind of help you manage your schedule and tailor those tools to fit you personally, we have wonderful coaches who can help you with that. We also have our academic success videos on our YouTube page, which are different videos with different tips. And lastly, we have a tutoring list on our website. And you'll see that image is for the academic coaching. When you go to that tiny URL link, you'll have to select those boxes to make the right appointment. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about online courses. So a few of the topics I'm going to cover, are the benefits and challenges of online courses, some of the assignments and tasks required for online courses. I'm going to talk about the importance of understanding time and how to create a schedule, and then some general strategies and things like making connections and the importance of that. So kind of do a broad coverage and hopefully you find it helpful. So starting off, what are the benefits of online classes? Well, first, you can study at a time that suits you. You can work your classes around your schedule, your work schedule. You can match it to family commitments. You can make it work for you. You can also work at a pace that suits you. Even if assignments are due weekly, you can kind of take your time throughout the week to work, or you can, do everything in a shorter period of time if you're able to. It also has a big cost cut for commute time and getting to campus, so you can work from home or wherever is convenient for you. Some challenges are definitely, as much as there are benefits, there are a few challenges. So one of the biggest challenges is lack of motivation. It's really difficult for a lot of people to kind of motivate yourself to work and push yourself to get started on assignments, especially when you maybe feel less connected to your cohort or your class members or your professor, kind of like you're alone in that situation, and it's hard to, keep yourself accountable and make sure you're getting the work done. So that's why, honestly, those coaches at Learning Services can be really helpful to keep you accountable, but also having a peer in the class or just finding a way to keep you on task and on track every week. So speaking of that, time management can be difficult, making sure you find time in your week to get all your work done and to split up your assignments so you're not cramming at the last minute. Working at times when you're alert throughout your day, figuring those kind of things out. Also, confidence, sort of the ability to work more on your own and feel self-confident in your work, but also knowing how to ask for help and how to reach out to the professor and not being afraid to make your class your own and kind of take charge of your learning experience. Technical skills, this is a big one, knowing how to navigate Blackboard and, video platforms like Zoom or WebEx or Blackboard Collaborate, whatever technology is involved in the online class, that definitely can be a challenge for a lot of people. And lastly, being proactive. So, or not lastly, there's a few more, but being proactive is really important, not waiting to the last minute, staying on top of things, being ahead of the game, super important with online classes. And then loneliness, like I mentioned earlier, it's easy to sort of feel alone in the class and feeling be helpless, or if something is difficult, that can be definitely a struggle or a challenge. And lastly, persistence. So as the semester goes on, being able to persist week to week and get the work done, even when you're having to motivate yourself. So some mistakes, some right off the back mistakes to avoid in online classes. First of all, starting the class late is a big one, because if you start late in the beginning, that can set you up to be late for the rest of the semester. So as soon as the course pops up on Blackboard or wherever, it's really important to read through the syllabus, contact your professor, things like that, which I'll go over later, but just being aware and being ready as soon as the semester starts. And along those timelines, try not to wait on textbooks. Like, as soon as you even maybe get your professor's name, email them and ask for the textbooks, or go on Barnes & Noble, use Barnes & Noble website and find your textbooks, or look in your syllabus. But as soon as you can get those, the sooner you'll be able to start on your coursework and get ahead and stay on track with your work. Another mistake to avoid is not logging on for the minimum amount of time. So some classes require a certain number of logins, but for me, I would just say, like, make sure you're checking Blackboard at least a few times a week to keep up with the work, and check your email, check for announcements, check for discussion boards that might be due, because it's easy to let the class fall through the cracks if you have other life things going on. So trying to remember and stay mindful of what's coming up, and doing that by going on Blackboard, making a schedule for yourself, and staying organized. Another mistake to avoid is not asking for feedback. So again, that's a big theme here, is like feeling disconnected from your professor. So reach out to your professor, to your TA, to resources on campus to ask for help, and ask for feedback on your materials or your assignments, so that you can get the grade that you want and that you deserve in your class. And lastly, a mistake to avoid is asking for incomplete. Incompletes are possible and available. Essentially, it's an extension beyond final season. But the thing with incompletes is, if you're already behind or you already don't have those time management skills throughout the semester, it's unlikely that if you go beyond the end of the semester that you'll keep going, or it's possible, but incompletes are more meant to be for emergencies, like if a medical emergency came up in the middle of the semester, or some life event that made it so that you weren't available for like a whole month. That might make more sense to then have to push your deadlines later, but try as much as possible to keep on track every week, so you can avoid that lateness and that needing to ask for something like an incomplete. So one activity you can do, if you go to this website, it's a course workload estimator. So it can help give you an idea of like how many hours in your week you need to do to get your reading done, your writing, your assignments, your exams, your coursework. So if you're looking to plan potentially taking an online course, or if you are trying to manage a course you have now, this is a good tool that can help you estimate your time. So some really important like cognitive skills and critical skills for online learning include a few things. So the first one is your time invested in content learning. So when you are taking an online class, you likely have, let me go back, let me retrace my steps. If you're in person, you have your lectures which you attend, and then you usually have readings and assignments. When you're in an online course, you not only have those readings that you do on your own and the assignments that you do on your own, but you also have to quote unquote attend your lecture on your own. And attending your lecture could look anything like a synchronous, lecture over Zoom, but it could also be a media that your professor has given you pre-recorded videos or additional readings that you have to read. So it's a lot of like sitting at your computer, sitting at your desk, doing all the steps required. And because you're on your own, you really have to be disciplined and make sure you're investing and essentially teaching yourself or learning the material on your own. Like I said, you still, please reach out to the professor, ask them questions, but as far as the time invested in going over the material, that's all on you. So that's a big factor in online learning. Another thing is keeping up with your studies regularly. It's easy to maybe, if you don't have assignments due for a few weeks, to kind of forget about the class. But it's important to stay on top of things so that you're keeping up with the material and you're not procrastinating and you're keeping up with the material, so that it stays fresh in your mind and that nothing slips through the cracks. And lastly, again, the big one, help seeking, being able to ask for help. Simple as that. It's really important for an online class and in-person classes, honestly, too. So some general tips for online classes are to actively participate in the learning process. So like I said, being able to go through all the materials, but in addition to that, test yourself, making flashcards, studying the material, asking yourself if you understand the material, sort of checking in and being your own, you have to be your own teacher. So you have to be the one to go through the material and the one to kind of test yourself to make sure you have the material. And then if you don't, then you go to the professor who's that resource for additional questions. So being super active, being engaged, being on top of it, all really important. And another way to do this is to plan ahead and work throughout the week. So what I would suggest, and I'll go over this a little bit later, but as soon as you get your syllabus or syllabi, if you're taking multiple classes, look through the calendar and write on a monthly calendar when all of your big assignments are due. So when are those papers due? When are those labs and discussion boards? When are the exams going to be? And then maybe taking some time to write down all the readings due every week, or to make note that you will have to be reading every week if that's part of your class, which most classes are like that. So in terms of time management, you have that macro monthly calendar with all your assignments for the rest of the semester, subject to change maybe if the professor does change things, but ideally that's how it'll be. Then the next level, you want to create a weekly schedule. So writing in like an hour by hour schedule, what times you have work, what time you have family dinner, what time you have organization meetings, what times you go to religious services, what time you work out every day, right? So you put in all those times that you have committed, schedules or committed appointments, and then in those free times, then blocking off time to study. And the number of hours that you should block off will depend, and using that course load estimator earlier would be really helpful for that. But ideally, however many credit hours you're taking, so if it's a 3-credit course, you're going to need 3 credits times an additional 3 times 2, which is 6. So ideally 9 hours a week, maybe 12 if it's a harder class, somewhere between 9 and 12 hours per week. So trying to plan that out into your schedule and saying like, okay, Mondays, and I'll show you an example of the schedule later, but Mondays I'm going to do my readings, Tuesday I'm going to watch the material, Wednesday I'm going to start on the homework, etc., etc. So making that weekly time of day schedule. And then the third thing you'll need to do is make your daily to-do list, your daily tasks. So this would be at the beginning of every Monday, saying, okay, this week I have to do this reading, watch this video, work on this discussion board, study for this exam. So that will change more week to week. So long story short, you have your monthly calendar with your big assignments for the whole semester. You have your weekly time budget, so where you're budgeting your time, what times of the week you're going to study, and then your daily to-do list. So like I said, you're setting a time, that study time, to both go through the materials, study on your own, do extra practice, and work on your assignments. Another tip, like we've mentioned, make connections. So when the class starts, get the email of 1 or 2 people, or make a group chat with everybody in the class. That would be great. or Discord server or some sort of social networking tool can be really helpful to help you stay motivated and accountable, but also to help you have access to asking for help from your peers and then reaching out to your professor too. And then be open-minded, share, like use, even though the material might feel asynchronous, if it's just discussion boards, try to treat it like a real class, or an in-person class rather. Try to open up and comment on other people and make the most of your learning experience, because then they'll come alive to you more and it'll be easier to memorize. And if it's a synchronous course, try to be involved, turn on your camera if you can, write in the chat, ask questions, do what you can to stay engaged. And then, yeah, like I said, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. And the last one, this is another thing. If you have an ebook that's required for your class or online articles to read, get practice in finding like some sort of application that can help you highlight and take notes on the online reading materials, or feel comfortable or decide if you feel comfortable to print your materials if you like that better. So just thinking about how you're going to read your materials, whether it's set up online or a paper textbook. So thinking about the first day of class, what should you do? Be sure, to log on to your course. So as soon as it's on Blackboard, or if you're a new student, knowing how to get access to your email and go on Blackboard and be prepared in all those ways. And then download, read over the syllabus, add those deadlines to a calendar. Email the instructor to introduce yourself. Now, this might feel a little eager, but honestly, I think it's a really good idea to make that connection with your professor early on, so they can sort of put a little personality to your name and you're not just another name on the screen. And it can help you sort of bridge that gap in the beginning. Like the first email you're sending, you're just saying hi. You're not necessarily asking for help. So maybe later when you do need help, you feel more comfortable reaching out because you've already made that connection. And then this is a big one. Identify a location, preferably not your bed, and I'll explain why in a second, where you will attend your course or you'll do your homework. So ideally, or not ideally, before I say that, our brains are very associative. So we associate spaces to different tasks. So for example, your bed is where you sleep. So if you work in your bed, you're gonna likely feel tired because you normally sleep in your bed. And then if you start to work in your bed too much, then you will start associating your bed with work, and then when you're trying to sleep, you will feel alert. So it's really good to just have separate spaces for separate things. The kitchen's meant for eating, the bed's meant for sleeping, and then finding even if you live in a tiny apartment, like just finding one corner of your room that you can associate with like being productive. Very helpful. Or even, a certain scent or a certain, I don't know, pen or something, just a little trigger to be like, okay, it's work time. Because I think that's the hardest part of working from home, that it's easy to get distracted. And the same thing if you prefer to work in like a coffee shop. Find the perfect coffee shop that's not too noisy or that works for you, or a park or wherever. And then lastly, as I mentioned, make that monthly calendar for all your assignments due for the class. Organization, similar to the whole desk environment, you want to figure out how you're going to save all your course materials. So in person, you might put them all in folders and take notes in a notebook and keep your materials organized that way. But if you are online, you might be downloading a lot of materials. So try to create some sort of file system, for each class, each topic, each week even, and save your materials that way. Or if you print them, you can put them in some sort of binder. So time management. This is a big one. This is a big part of how to stay on track with your online class. So, like I said, online classes do require a significant time commitment. Some people think online classes are easier than in-person classes, and I would not say that's true. You still have to be really diligent, really responsible, even if you have all those benefits of like working on your own schedule and pacing yourself in your own time and things like that. Most online courses are flexible but not self-paced. So this means that you do usually have those weekly deadlines or a deadline at the end of the semester. You know, your professor might be flexible with deadlines, but you still need to pace yourself. Like you can't, even if you did have everything due at the end of the semester, it's impossible to do all the assignments in 2 weeks. So creating your own schedule, keeping on track in a consistent way is really important. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but class time and study time are not the same things. So when you make your schedule and when you think about the time that you need to dedicate to your class, you're going to have both the like quote lecture class time, which is going over the course materials like the readings, the videos, articles, reading all that. So all the learning stuff. And then there's like the learning, and then there's the doing. So working on assignments, writing discussion boards, and then testing yourself. So working on practice problems, doing the homework, testing yourself, seeing if you've engaged you're understanding the materials you go. That's more of the studying. So class and studying are both at home, whereas when you're in person, one is in person, one's at home. So sometimes feels like you actually have more work to do, even though you technically don't. It's just more on you. And then lastly, use some sort of weekly time budget sheet to create a schedule for your course. So what days of the week you plan on doing different tasks. And then your sort of daily to-do list can look like this. So you might have 2 to 3 learning goals for the week. It might be study for an exam, write a proposal, and work on a project, right? And then you want to break those bigger goals into really small, specific, objective, SMART goals, really easily measurable, specific tasks. So, for example, work on group projects might entail getting the emails of your group members, texting them, finding a time to meet, figuring out what you need to do before your first meeting, and then doing that task. Or a proposal, it might be look at the requirements for the proposal, choose your topic, gather research, write the thing, etc., etc. Studying for your exam, it might be reread, go over your notes, make up questions, answer those questions without the notes, make flashcards, use the flashcards, write a sample outline for an essay. Whatever it is. But when we make to-do lists, it's easy to just write down something sort of general and then either feel overwhelmed by how that task is, write proposal. It's impossible to do that in one chunk. So if you break it up, you have more realistic little tasks to do. And then you also know that, hey, it's going to actually take more than one day to write my proposal. I need to break it up over the week in these smaller tasks or smaller steps. So super important to first think about those big goals, but then to write smaller goals and then assign them on a specific day. And then you can monitor your progress as you complete those tasks. And then at the end, reflect on your performance. See, did you give yourself enough time? Did you give yourself too much time? Did you need any help when you worked on that? Are you able to kind of stick to your plans? Using your sort of self-regulation skills and your accountability skills to make sure you're working in pace or in line with what you're supposed to be doing. And you can use something like a daily preparation schedule to help you log your tasks and goals. So I can show you an example of this schedule, and you can actually find it on our website, Learning Services. It's in the sort of additional resources section. So this is a small screenshot of what the daily prep schedule looks like, but on the top of the page, it has your 3 goals for the week, your 3 big goals. And then for every day of the week, there's listed by priority, the most important study activity, the second most important study activity, and the third most important study activity. And then there's also a line for like other activities. So prioritization is also a big thing. So if you have multiple things to do in a day, it can be easy to get overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, I have all these things I need to do. Okay, but what's your first priority? What's the most important thing that needs to be done? So if you look at the screen, this sheet is color-coded based on a different big goal. So if you look at the blue color, this is related to the proposal so the first task, second priority, is to make edits to the proposal and send it to the committee on Tuesday, and then start developing the PowerPoint on Wednesday. And the green activity is for related to studying. So on Monday, the person said, I need to create flashcards for chapter 9. On Tuesday, I want to try to get to the complete 10 review questions. But if I don't get to it, or if I don't finish it, I can then finish it on Wednesday. But on Wednesday, I definitely need to finish it. And then you might have other tasks like reading chapter 5 or locating your sources, which then maybe become higher priority tasks towards the end of the week. So this is a really good tool to break down your big goals into smaller tasks, prioritize them, and then make them realistic and set for a specific day so that you can check them off as you go. So for example, like I mentioned earlier, you might be working on your class for many days during a week. It's not something you can just sit down unless maybe you had the whole day and unlimited amounts of concentration, which I don't. So spreading it out throughout the week might be your best way. So it could look your schedule could look something like this. On Monday, begin the required readings and start to look through that multimedia, the videos, lecture, podcast, whatever. Tuesday, continuing those readings and reviewing the materials, finishing them up. Wednesday, maybe post to a discussion board if that's required. Begin your assignments that might be due towards the end of the week. Thursday, do those responses to the discussion board posts, submit your journal or whatever assignments due. Submit those assignments if they're due on Friday, for example. Then Saturday, start to work through that review packet, that study guide for an exam. And Sunday, check to make sure you did everything for the week and continue studying for your exam. So this is just one example, but a good way to kind of be specific about what's due, write it in your to-do list, and track it, work on it throughout the week. And like I said, I wanna make this clear and concise, but make those connections. Like even though you might feel alone, you're not alone in that class. There are other people who are in the same boat who probably also feel overwhelmed and maybe unmotivated. So reach out to your classmates, reach out to your professor, use university resources like coaching and tutoring, and events just to have fun, social events. If you're in a time, I don't know when you're watching this, but if you remember COVID-19 or you're in COVID, there's still sort of virtual hangouts that are happening. Or if you're a student that can't come onto campus, look for activities that might be meeting virtually, and try to join. So above all, get to know your professor, of course, ask them questions, reach out, and then, like I said, connect with those other students. And then, like I said, as you're making your weekly schedule, it's really important to self-reflect. So it's easy to kind of get pigeonholed or get sort of lost in the details and stressing about everything that needs to get done and sort of not planning yourself ahead of time, and then instead just being part of the rat race and trying to get things done and feeling kind of lost. It's also really important to take a step back, just look at the way you're approaching your schoolwork and self-reflect. So are you setting goals for the week? Are you meeting those goals for the week? What did you do? What strategies did you do to achieve those goals, and did they work? Do you understand all of the material, all of the learning objectives from that week? Do you know enough about the material to answer questions if you were tested on it? And if not, what can you do to study additionally? And what changes do you need to make to improve your performance? So especially if you're new to online courses, kind of just checking in with yourself and monitoring yourself to make sure you're doing the best you can, and if you're also putting too much stress on yourself, being able to say like, okay, it's a lot, I'm new to this, I'm trying my best, what do I need to do to keep going? Giving yourself that self-forgiveness too is a big part of keeping track of your own self. So there's a lot of components, a lot of good use for self-reflection. And one way you can sort of track yourself is to use something like a study log. And this you can create on your own or make a version of this, but it's similar to the daily prep sheet, but if you don't want to assign things by each day, you could just assign on a date or by a date what task you need to do, where you plan on doing it. That's a big one. The more we imagine how we're going to do something, where we're going to do something, when we do it, and for how long, the more likely we're going to do it because you've created a very specific plan for yourself. So making to-do list checklists like this that are specific with the tasks, the where, the when, the how long, and then obviously did you do it, that can be really helpful. So yeah, using a study log like this is super useful. And yeah, I hope you found that helpful. I hope I didn't breeze things too quickly, but if you use this as sort of a starting point for some tools about online learning, definitely feel free to reach out to our coaches and see how you can apply these tools. We do offer online coaching during COVID and not during COVID, so you can always meet with a coach. And again, reach out to your professor, try your best, make a schedule, all things to kind of just keep you motivated. And I think too, just remember why you're doing what you're doing. It's easy to sort of get lost in the assignments and the readings. But just ask yourself, like, hey, why am I in this program? Why am I doing this? And hopefully you have an answer to that. So that should be motivating. And if you don't have an answer to that, go to somewhere like career services to say, like, okay, how can my major apply to my life, to my work, so that you can find that internal motivation. But yeah, again, you can find learning services on our website or in person or via the phone or on social media. We have Instagram, maybe on others you can DM our marketing staff and they can direct you. But yeah, I hope this provided a good foundation for some tips, and I hope you find them to be useful. Okay, good luck, Patriots, on your online classes. I'll see you hopefully in our office. Thank you.